Good morning, and thank you all so much for joining us on this Monday morning. I am Marshette Turner, Director of the Houston Minority Business Development Agency, and I'm excited about what my MBDA Amplified team is doing. Today, we have a very special guest who is going to briefly speak to us about identifying and engaging buyers and key decision makers for your businesses. Dr. Sharita Humphrey is a certified financial education instructor and money manager. So what that simply means is that she can not only share best practices with you, but you're assured to get the best possible results if you follow her advice. In 2021, Dr. Humphrey began to do financial literacy work with the U.S. Department of State. So she's not just speaking about something she heard or something she read. This is a passion for her, and I'm certain she'll share more of her story with you. So I will keep it moving. I want you to be reminded that this webinar series is being recorded and you can view it on our YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. After Dr. Humphrey presents this morning, we'll open it up for Q&A, at which time you can ask all those burning questions I'm sure you'll have. You can actually start thinking about where you want your business to go and start forming those questions now so that she can answer those in a timely fashion for you. Of course, I always want to acknowledge my team on today's call. Of course, Ms. Diedra Sutton, one of our business advisors, Ms. Tanya McGilbra, another business advisor, Ms. Joni Hall, who is a business trainer, and Mr. Austin Tenette, who is also a business trainer. Of course, I have my right hand, Ms. Jessica Vasquez, who is our program coordinator and WebEx extraordinaire on this call. So she is operating the screen as I speak. Before I turn it over to Ms. Joni Hall, let me remind you, or in some cases, inform you all about our Salute Luncheon. So Salute will take place on Tuesday, January 13th at the Junior League of Houston, and it will be from 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. This is where we honor and celebrate our MBEs and all of the community and government advocates who support them. So you don't want to miss being a part of this amazing luncheon. You can go to the site on the screen and register for Salute. You can become a sponsor or you can just purchase an individual ticket. But whatever you do, make sure you are in the room and have a seat at the table to hear from our amazing keynote speaker, Miss Adrienne Trimble, who is not only the Vice President and Chief Diversity and Culture Officer at Cisco, but she's a dear, dear friend of mine. So again, please register for Salute today at the link on your screen. If you have any questions, of course, you can always call our MBDL office and we will be more than happy to assist you. So with all of that, let me turn it over to Miss Joni Hall, one of our business trainers. Take it away, Joni.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Such a wonderful, wonderful feeling to see everyone manifest their Mondays and move forward for your business and for yourself to keep the savviness going. We definitely are halfway through the MBDA Small Business Academy. So kudos to you for joining us every other Monday. We want to keep that momentum going. We still have our office hours on Wednesdays. Will be Wednesday, May 3rd. So after the webinar today, you can schedule an appointment with myself and Austin. And then on Monday, May 8th, we'll have them at 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and we can schedule you for then. But we do encourage you, as Director Turner said, be in the room. So consider everything that we're going to open the door for you today. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Austin Tenette, who is my business training partner. Mr. Tenette.
Ms. Hall, thank you so much. And Director Turner, thank you so much for that lively Monday morning welcoming. Well, I feel pumped up just listening to you there, Director Turner, so I appreciate that. So welcome everybody who's joining us, and particularly for those of you who may be joining us for the first time. As my colleague Joni Hall had mentioned, we're on a journey here, focusing on entrepreneurs in the Houston area, helping them to obviously stand up and grow their businesses with a focus on government contracting. So for those of you who've not been on our earlier sessions, the areas that we have covered so far include the entrepreneurial mindset. We've talked about how to build a winning capability statement. We've talked about the elements of responding to a request for proposal. And then we also have discussed where to find business opportunities in the government contracting space. And I think the one takeaway that we know is that there's just literally hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities across the country. But today we wanted to make our session a little bit more with Director Turner has said, with somebody who's kind of been in the trenches, been there, done that, and brings a wealth of experience to what it takes to be successful in the government contracting space. And then that's Dr. Sharita Humphrey. So welcome, Dr. Humphrey. Hopefully you're ready for a lively discussion here this morning. Oh, I think you're on mute there, Dr. Humphrey.
Oh, okay. So again, thank you so much for having me. Happy Monday, everyone. I'm excited about this conversation on this Manifesting and Money Monday.
Well, great. So I tell you what, let's without further ado, because I know there's a lot of questions that want to be asked. So let's just kind of get into our little bit of a discussion here.
Okay.
So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, all the areas that we've covered so far in our government contracting series, but the thing that we probably haven't touched on, and I think what's probably a burning desire for so many of the people here is, but could you help us understand who are some of, when it comes to decision making about whether I have a winning or a proposal or not, who are some of the key players in the decision making process that we need to be aware of?
First of all, you're already in the right place because you're here and working with this amazing team. But you also want to make sure, like what I like to say, make sure that you have your own wisdom and money team. It's very important. You want to make sure that you have a great CPA, bookkeeper, accountant. I'm a business attorney, because guess what? You want to make sure when you're signing those government contracts or reviewing, or before you sign those contracts, that you have a clear understanding on what's happening with those contracts, to make sure that if there's any negotiations that need to happen, that you're very clear on that. And if legal is not your area of expertise, highly recommend it. But business advisors like Joni and Austin are going to be very key to help you to be able to move forward along your journey. But immersing yourself in those who are already doing it and showing up, even if you haven't won your first contract or put your first proposals together or even looked at one bid, it's important to immerse yourself in the government contracting space, to learn as much as you can. And even though I've been doing this for quite a while, I'm still learning. I'm still putting those resources and time in, because it's very important for me to be able to reach the goal that I have to secure $100 million worth of government contracts by the end of this decade. So it is a very important and very vital that you start to show up to these meetings and meet the buyers, conferences, trade shows. But the great thing about it is we can do it many times right from online, showing up to those webinars, making sure that you start to register, getting on those email lists, so that way you know what is happening, when and where, and who's buying your products or services. That's going to be the very first thing that you need to do, even before you start to realize where you want to show up. Networking goes beyond just a business card. Government contracting is about relationships and people knowing what you do, how you do it, and how well you do it.
Wow, that was well packed. I think appreciate that response. I think Joni's got a question for you there, Dr. Humphrey.
Yes,
I do. So why do you want to meet, and why, in short, what focus list of people do you want to meet?
you definitely want to meet the agencies that are, or the agencies or the municipalities. If you're thinking about if you're thinking about the education space, if you're in education, you want to meet the people who are making the decisions, or who can connect you to the decision makers. One of the things is, I love the Office of Business Opportunity. Portia Jackson's really great at helping you to really align on how to be able to do business with the city. If you're thinking about doing this business with the city of Houston. So the Office of OBO would definitely be one of the things that I would definitely say. Figuring out, you don't have to do everything. Remember, figuring out who you can do business in your own backyard. Are you connected with your chamber? who, because they're connected with many of the procurement officers, they're connected with many of the agencies that you want to do business with. So knowing who and where they need to go. And one of the things is, I think, Joni, just to answer your question, we forget about the county commissioner's office when we're thinking about doing business. So thinking about what your path is, because we're not going to be all in the same road on what we want to do, but having a government contracting roadmap. Is it that you want to do business on the city level? Do you want to do business on the state level? Figuring that out is going to help you to break down who you need to contact. And remember, start with your top three, because I know times we want to just we want to be octopus and we want to throw all the things out there, but kind of narrowing it down and figuring out what three agencies or what three networking events do I need to connect with? And when I'm there, figuring out who they are. Because one of the things that when you're meeting the buyer, you want to be very specific and make sure that your capability statement really speaks to the agencies that align with who and what you plan to do when you start to connect with them. Because remember, there's a lot of people going after the business, especially if you're in a more high demand business or a high demand industry. So you want to make sure that they know who you are. And who they are is the procurement officers. I always like to connect with them. The reason why is because they are, even if it's someone that's connected to them, you want to make sure that you understand that organizational chart. Just how many of us have an organizational chart for our business, you want to figure out what the organizational chart is for that particular agency. So you know exactly who to connect with. And if you don't know who to connect with, organizations like the MBDA, SCORE, Office of Business Opportunity can help you get it, and the SBDC can help you to kind of just guide your way on what agency really is aligned with the business and the business that you desire to do.
That's great. Appreciate it. I just want to do a little follow-on question there. So what role, from your perspective, do events like bidder conferences, trade shows, meet the buyer events, what are your thoughts on those events in terms of attendance, and how best do we show up?
I think there's no question on whether you should be doing it. Yes, you should be showing up, whether it's in person or online. But guess what? We're back outside. So showing up and getting out. I know we've become really, the pandemic had us locked in, but getting back out there, meeting people. There's something about being in the room, and even showing up here. You're doing the first step. Making sure that you're connecting, sharing what your business are, connecting with your peers, because the best ecosystems are built from those one-on-one relationships and allowing other people to speak your name in the room. Because guess what? I may not be in your industry, but I may be connected to someone who I can pass your capability statement off to, or your info, or your website, or even some of or your business information. So that way they can learn a little bit more about who you are and what in the businesses or the products or services that you provide. So it is very, very important to think about and be very strategic. Don't do it just one time. Keep showing up. Make it your business that you're going to show up to events, whether they're virtual or online. And one of the things is we all get busy. We're business owners. But make sure that you leave yourself a reminder. Start to prepare for them. Don't wait till the day of the event and then you're trying to scramble. Practice makes perfect. Or practice is in the procurement. So practice about what you're going to say. How are you going to, if you had 30 minutes or 30 seconds to be able to pitch your business, or 2 minutes, how are you going to make sure that they want to be able to want to learn more about you? So this is why it's always been very important to even just show up. If you're not a public speaker, I'm a huge fan of Toastmasters. So that way you can learn how to become a better speaker. And being able to be along and practicing with your peers is going to help you to really be able to get some valuable feedback. But I'm sure Joni and Austin are, if you use those office hours, can really be able to help you to kind of streamline if you're a little bit nervous, or if you've already registered for one and you're not really sure on what to say. They can really be able to help guide you. So when you show up confident, but you also show up in a listening mode. Because one of the things with procurement is it's very important to be able to show up and be able to talk about your business, but it's also going to be very important to understand that listening goes a long way.
So you touched on something that's always high on my list on these kinds of events, and that's the role of preparation. So you touched on a couple of things, but what about in terms of preparation, having a 30-second commercial, having a well put together capability statements? Could you just expand on those two and maybe some other things that you believe are
Yes.
important as part of the
One of the
preparation
things I
process?
like to do is the mirror work. I love to be able to just talk about it because guess what? If you are sitting in front of you, then guess what? You are it's just you. It's almost kind of just putting yourself out there to allow for you to be able to see how you come across. Are you blinking too much? Are you using your hands? Really being able to master on how you want to show up by being able to and what I like to do is use that time, that stopwatch, or put something on your phone so you can kind of just see, am I going over 30 seconds? Am I a little bit under? Do I leave enough time for them to be able to ask their questions before they move on? Because remember, depending on where you show up, you may have 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 2 minutes to be able to pitch your business, and to be, especially when you're talking about going to those where you're meeting the buyer, you may not have a lot of time. So knowing how to be able to perfect whether you have 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or 2 minutes is one of the things that I highly recommend. So that way you give enough time to give a lot of get feedback, so that feedback is valuable. It is, and take notes, and really be able to make sure that you get their information so that way you can follow up. But then before you even go, figure out who do you want to connect with? Because when you get there, the energy's high. You want to, and then you can kind of you can get distracted very easily. So if you already have your what I like to say, your procurement blue, or your meet the buyer blueprint, or you're going to these trade shows or these bidder conferences, having those things in order, and then kind of just leaving time for yourself so that way you can kind of network is what I highly recommend. But then when you're talking about your capability statement, make sure that capability statement, we all have our one capability statement that's general. Let me give you a little secret about mine. I always like to tailor my capability statement because there may be some things that I may have left out, but there's a agency or a company that I want to do business with. So I always like to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward and making sure that my capabilities are strong, but know that that it's okay to tweak things as long as that is in alignment with what you truly can do and execute. But make that your capability statement will expand. And remember that a lot of times we start with that one capability statement, but think about all the things that you've done. You want to make sure that you put the things that really highlight and really focus on what makes you different. Lastly, it is imperative that you know your value proposition, because that, if you don't know that, make those two words are very key. Understanding your value proposition will go a very long way, because it'll help you to make sure that capability statement, when it says what makes you different, that value proposition, when you know it, you will be confident in it. And when you sit at those tables and you start to meet procurement officers, or city or state agencies, you'll be confident on your abilities to be able to say and speak to why you or your company is the best one for this opportunity that you're going after.
Well, that's great info. Joni, do you have a question or comment?
Actually, I did have a question about, because we have talked about being prepared. So when you actually get to the event, can you give us a couple of nuggets of like how dress, like an example of how should you dress, your delivery style, things to that magnitude?
I love to be able to talk about this, Joni. Dress for success, because you know what? Your first impression is always the last. So you want to make sure that you understand before you even go. And so we're going to just kind of just tag back on prep. What type of business? Because many times they may say business casual, business professional. So it's important to kind of just figure out what is the best dress. And it is okay to be able, if you're not clear, reach out, because you want to make sure that you don't want to show up with a great capability statement, a great 30-second pitch, and then you're not dressed the part. And guess what? When you show up and you're dressed at your best, that confidence really helps you to be able to stand out. And it kind of gets rid of some of those nerves. Nerves is okay, because guess what? It keeps you focused. But when you're dressed your best and you understand that dressing and putting yourself out there just kind of brings it and hones it in, really makes it, really helps to kind of just what it's a side, put the stamp on it. So make sure that and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Something that you can just kind of just, I always like to call what they said, the capsule wardrobe. Understanding what you can do to kind of switch out things that's going to make you stand out, but make sure that you're fitting into the environment that you're in. And understanding that dressing for success doesn't just stop right there when you do this. Every time you show up, make sure that you're dressed your best and that you're representing your, not only yourself, but your company.
That's boy, these there are so many nuggets here. I can't write fast enough.
They're recording.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So I have a little phrase that I've coined, Dr. Humphrey, is that because many of the people that are on the call here today are either they possess a certification or they are on the path towards certification. Now, my personal belief that the certification is kind of like a fishing license, that even though you have a fishing license, the fish aren't going to jump into the boat. You still got to drop a line and that sort of thing. So after we've did all these preparatory things that you talked about, capability statement, value proposition, those kinds of things. And after maybe we even met some of the key decision makers. What are things that we should do or keep in mind to again make that certification work for us in terms of follow up with key decision makers, stakeholders, and that sort of things? What are the things that are top of your list?
When we met, Austin, I said, you know what, the funds and the profits are in the follow up. One of the things that you always want to think about is follow up, follow up, follow up. Because guess what? When you leave there, many times we go back to what our business are, get back to our regular life. But guess how many people do not follow up? It is imperative that you follow up. And that's why I said going back to preparation, because remember, preparation will help you to make sure that you already have some things. And I'm going to share an inside tip with you guys on what I do. When I already know who I'm going to be meeting with, or they've already, because many times you'll kind of get an idea of who you're going to meet with. And even if I don't know their email address or their contact information there, I already have some of the things. I like to schedule email drafts. I have drafts where I said, you know what, here, when I come from this meeting in the next 24 or 48 hours, I have to make sure that I follow up with all of the people that I've met. This helps me to make sure that I stay on task, because many times we don't follow up because we get busy or we don't know what to be able to say. So thinking about that agency, now you can kind of plug in after the conversation and meeting with these agencies, meeting with these key stakeholders. Now you can really be able to add what I like to call the meat to the email, or the meat to the email, to really be able to say, maybe putting out one or two things that they said, or a takeaway that you said that you learned about their agency or about them that you're going to implement. Because people like to know that you were listening and that you're going to implement and make sure, and of course, following up. And don't feel bad if you don't hear back from them. Remember, I told Austin it's okay to be a persistent pest. It's okay to be a persistent pest. They're busy. They meet hundreds of people each and every day, each and every week, each and every quarter. So making sure that you plan it out. And so that's why I said it's very important to already have those things. So when I get ready to go out, and I'm just going to tell you guys this, when I get ready to go out, I'm going to a lot of events this month. I have already figured out, okay, here's who I need to connect with. What are they doing on LinkedIn? How do I start to get into their fold? Even if I never make a direct connection with them, I'm going to tell you a LinkedIn secret. LinkedIn is used this way. If you know the person, you connect. If you want to just to figure out and get into their ecosystem, you follow them. So what do? I follow them. I have my notifications on. So that way I'm already prepared before I go. And one of the things, just to kind of just start to take it back, Austin, to when I've been able to make a great introduction because I said, hi, I said, I saw you at an event. I saw that you shared on LinkedIn that you were at this event. How did it go? How was it? What were some of the key takeaways? I want to make sure that if the next event that you have, that I'm in attendance. So that way that they know that you're serious about what you're doing. And then lastly, make sure that you ask, because a lot of times we're scared to be able to talk to these key stakeholders or these procurement officers. Ask, do you mind putting me and keeping it? I'm following you, but do you mind letting me know about any future events or any opportunities that you think would be aligned with my capability statement? Because I want to continue to be able to do business with your organization and your partners. I have gotten many opportunities by just doing that, because guess what? Knowing how to be able to close that email or close that handwritten note. And yes, I still write handwritten notes, because if I don't hear from them in an email, guess what I do? I figure out where their email, what's their office. Many times it's listed there on their business card or on the website. And I write a handwritten note, because guess what? That's one of the ways that makes people stay top of mind, because who's still writing handwritten notes right now when there's emails, social media, and all the other technologies out there? But a handwritten note as a thank you and including your business card goes a long way.
Wow, that is a treasure trove of nuggets there, Dr. Humphrey. If I didn't know any better, I would swear that you've taught a sales course or two. You covered many of the subjects that I often share with my workshop attendees when we talk about selling for the small business enterprise. I'd like maybe if you could go back and maybe cover one thing. Value propositions. And so I'm not sure I don't think we covered it in any of our previous sessions, but would you maybe spend a little bit more time, and if you're open to it, maybe share your personal value prop that you share with key decision makers?
Okay, so sure. Your value proposition tells a key stakeholder, procurement officer, or even Joni, Dr. Turner, or Jessica, or the rest of their team, what you do, why you do it, and how you do it, and why you're the best at it. And Austin, of course, knows this because he teaches, he's taught sales. One of the things that you want to be able to make sure that you understand is that your value proposition, if you know it, is a conversation, is something that's going to allow people to really be able to get to know you and who you are. But think about this. One thing that I've learned about it, and I'm sure Austin is going to be able to tell you, is that storytelling is the best way to be able to keep people engaged. And so being able to tell your value proposition on why you do the business that you do is important. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my value proposition is. I'm Dr. Sharita Humphrey, CEO and founder of Change in Motion, LLC. We're a curriculum development and training company. What we do, we help to connect the dots when it comes to providing financial and business literacy to corporate, government, especially when it comes to state and local. One of the things that we realize that makes us different is that we understand that creating curriculum is not just the thing that's going to help people to become more business or financially knowledgeable. What's going to help them is to be able to see people who can recognize who they are and have been there, because many of us have come from very humble beginnings and we've built sustainable businesses. And so the curriculum and the training solutions that we provide help marginalized, underbanked, and under-resourced communities to be able to get into a situation where they go from startup, growth, and now they are the future they are creating future leaders by hiring those who may have forgotten that they are valuable, and that they are the reason why and how our city and our state is great. And so for us, curriculum development and training goes beyond just being able to put you on our LMS system. What's going to make us great is that we're boots on the ground. So our team is guided trainings. It's guiding learning, because everybody learns different. And so do you. So those are some things that we kind of just talk about. When you're able to really be able to tell a story, tell people what you do, how you do it, and how you get results, this is what makes you valuable to any procurement, stakeholder, consumer, what have you. Understand that your story is yours and yours alone, and that your capability statement tells a story. It gives a little bit of a higher level overview to any key holder, key stakeholders, procurement officers, or even the federal government looking to do business with you. And even though your small idea may seem small to you, it's big to the government. And don't let your small ideas stop you from doing and putting those certifications, because we put a lot of time into them. So make sure that you're using your certifications and not just using them as just getting the fit, the fishing hook or the rod, but putting worms on them, and to keep feeding that, keep feeding it, keep throwing it, keep casting your net out there, because eventually, guess what? You're going to build an ecosystem of people who will be able to share your business. They'll be able to speak your business like they're in your business, because guess what? Many of the opportunities that I get come from people just speaking my name and my company's name in the room based on the results and the stories that I've told them about what we do and how we do it. So remember that the one thing that will make you different is that you have an idea that only you can sell to the government, that only you can be able to procure to corporate if you decide to do corporate supplier diversity. Those are things that only you can do. And I think that it seems so big, especially in the beginning. But remember, every small business is why our city, our state, and our country is great. So your idea is needed, but you have to be able to prepare, and then you have to follow up, and then you have to rinse and repeat. You have to keep doing those things. And as you continue to expand, don't forget about what got you to the first award, the second, or the third. Keep utilizing those certifications. Keep continuing to connect with organizations like the MBDA, even when you are bigger than you imagined. Because guess what? Those are going to be the people and the resources and the key stakeholders and the procurement officers that you're going to need when when they start asking you for references and who can you go to. Because one of the things is, what I will tell you guys is that many of the opportunities that we have gotten have come strongly, not just because we do great work, but we have references who speak on our behalf. So always think about those relationships, because some of those relationships will become references that's going to allow you to increase your company's revenue.
I got to tell you, Dr. Humphrey, when you were sharing your value prop, my spine was tingling, because you hit on all the major components of what it takes to build a good value prop statement. So may I have the permission to dissect it a little bit for our audience?
Yes.
So when she started, she talked about what she does, curriculum development and training, but she didn't stop there, because that's what she does. But what business is she really in? And this is the emotional component that goes along with any good storytelling. She was able to tell the story about how she takes disenfranchised people and how they changes the trajectory, changes their lives permanently by teaching them the essence of entrepreneurship, financial acumen, and basically getting their financial act together. And then talked about the outcome, what happens on the other end when people work with her. So I don't think I've ever heard a value prop that well put together and hit on all the key points. What you do, from a business services standpoint, but more importantly, what is it business are you really in? You're in the business of changing lives from a financial perspective. So that was just awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. That's great. So we're going to go into the sort of the Q&A session for our attendees who've been listening attentively. Before we do that, Joni, did you have a final question or two for Dr. Humphrey before we go to Q&A?
I think she has done a phenomenal job at covering things today. It is, her value proposition is amazing. When we discussed and talked about this on April 3rd, we touched on it. I do encourage people to go back to that video, and then you can feel the depth that she was discussing about the value proposition and make the connection and revisiting capability statements, because I think this is a one shot when you're going to these events. This is the thing that is key and is going to speak to you and about your business. Dr. Humphreys, I just want to say kudos. It's great. It's kind of tied the bow here for us, so we appreciate that. So we'll go ahead, and that's all that I had for comments, and yield to the floor, because I'm sure there are some amazing questions to come from this amazing presentation this morning.
Absolutely.
Before we get to questions, Dr. Humphrey, let me say first, great job. You gave practical advice, but then it was very great advice as well. And oftentimes we tend to sort of skip over or jump over what we consider the small things.
Right.
You know, that personal note, handwritten note really struck a chord with me, because I do still write personal handwritten notes. And I think that they make all the difference, especially in this social media world that we live in now. So to receive a handwritten note makes all the difference, especially when you're trying to do business with someone. It lets them know you've taken the time to really sit down, think about, or process your thoughts, and then think about what you wanted to say to them. So that is absolutely amazing. And then, you were speaking my language when you talked about showing up and being prepared. There is nothing worse than going into a meet and greet or a networking event, and you're hemming and hawing and fumbling over what it is you want to say, think you should say. You know your business. You created it. You are the best at selling you. And so always own that. That's the best advice we can give, is to own who you are when you're networking and when you're speaking. And another great point, Dr. Humphrey, that you brought out was attending the events. So I know that a lot of things now are virtual, which is great. We all love that, because we don't have to leave our homes. We can get dressed up, look cute on screen, and be done. But by the same token, when there are events external to your home, you should absolutely attend those, because that puts you in front of the very people that you want to do business with, or that you want advice from, or whatever the case is. And so when they're looking at you in person, they can shake your hand. That makes far greater difference than sitting, on a webinar with them. That is great. And that's, the direction we're going in. But again, if you can make those in-person events, I strongly encourage you to do that, because they make all the difference. And again, as Dr. Humphrey said, be prepared when you go. Don't show up to a networking event in some jeans and gym shoes and think somebody's going to take you seriously. Now, if you go into a golf outing, then hey, put on your little golf shoes and do what you do. But by the same token, if you're going to a networking event and it's, say at a corporate office, you want to look the part, because you want them to take you seriously. So I just wanted to point out, Dr. Humphrey, some of the very practical advice that you'd given in a way that truly makes our attendees on today's call understand the value as well as the importance of showing up professionally, be it virtually or in person.
You're welcome. And one of the things, I'm going to put y'all in my business really quick, and then I know we're going to go to quick Q&A. I'm going to put it out there. I went to Austin and met with a agency there. And one of the things is, it's important. Yes, I drove from Houston to Austin and came right back the same day, because I was committed to making sure that I could do business with their agency. One of the things that I did was I put myself in a folder for them, because they're grabbing a lot of things. When you start showing up to these networking events, you're going to see they're grabbing business cards. They're trying to stuff everything. So what did I do? I make sure that every single time that I go, I invest into myself, because I want to make sure that my best foot is forward. That goes beyond my dress, my capability. I put everything there. And I told her, and I said this to them, and y'all can use this, but I said, you're going to see 4 versions of my capability statement in there. I said, the one that's on the top is the most recent, because I want you to be able to see the journey that it took for us to be able to get here, and why I made this 2-hour drive. That changed the trajectory of how I did business with them, because she said that was very out of the box thinking. I said, we were small. we're still considered a small business, but we won't be small for long. And the next time that you see our capability statement, in the next couple of years, we'll be a mid-sized business. And we're keeping these capability statements not only for an internal growth, but we want the agencies and the key stakeholders who see us to be able to see that our capabilities were enhanced by continuing to make sure that we show up to events like this and to be able to put ourselves out there and to do business like this. And that opened up so many doors. So thank you, Dr. Turner, for putting that out there. But be creative. When they say you have 2 minutes or 30 seconds, think about how you're going to be creative. Because even the Meet the Buyer in December, one of our clients flew in and we told them, you gotta be, they said on it, be creative. We wanna be able to hear that even if you sell pencils, how are they creative? How is this presentation gonna be creative? Because you can't have slides. So really think about when you're showing up, what can you give them? Even if it's a pen, think about this. Think about what you can do to be like, man, that was very creative, because guess what? That's going to be the thing that's going to help them to remember you and the business that you do.
That's the exact example I always use. Even if you make pens and pencils, sell them as if no pens or pencils have ever been made before yours. You know your business again. So, it's up to you to get as creative as you possibly can to really and truly make people hear what you say. Because oftentimes when they hear, oh, I make pens and pencils, well, they figure, and it's a million of those out there, I like my Pilot pen. It's the best writing pen in the world. Well, Pilot has nothing on Marchette's pens and pencils, so sell that. Yeah, that makes all the difference.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Turner, for those comments. And so we've got a few minutes left of our time this morning. So if there's any, what are other questions from those attendees? And Jessica,
I don't think that I see any out there in the chat, but I did have one for Dr. Humphreys, and it's about follow-up post the event. How crucial is that? You've done all this great, taking your capability statement, having these 30-second conversations, you're dressed professionally, and the end result, how important is follow-up?
Follow-up is like I said, the opportunities, the ecosystem building, and ultimately the awards are very, very key. You want to make sure that you follow up, because you would be surprised. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Turner and Joni and Austin can contest to this. You would be surprised about how many people don't follow up. It is surprising to me. And it's surprising to me, even when I hear from others, I was like, did you follow up? And they're like, oh, well, I got busy. Something happened and I forgot. Doesn't matter. If you were prepared in the beginning, then you would have followed up immediately. Because guess what? They're going to another event, and another event. So this is why I tell you to ensure that you start preparing, start making those drafts in your email, start thinking about that. So all you have to do is plug and play. Remember, I said, as great business owners, and I'm pretty sure Joni and Austin and the rest of the team are telling all of you that it is important to think about your businesses and your processes. So if you have a good system in place on how you're going to follow up, it makes you more of an effective leader. Because guess what? Those are transferable skills. Because those things now you want to be able to implement, because you want the team to be able to buy into what you're doing. But if you're disorganized as the leader, guess what? Many times we're disorganized in our business. So making sure that the things that you're asking from your internal team, if you have one, if you have some now, and if you don't, you want to make sure that the processes and procedures that you're doing as the CEO is important in following up. There is no reason for you to do all of that work to prep, to practice, get your pitch together, talk about what the great work that you do, but you don't follow up. Because guess what? Many times, those are things that stand up in your mind, because many times you're going to run into some of those same people and they're going to say, hey, didn't I meet you before? And now you're going to feel like, oh my God, I didn't follow up. So guess what? when you show up to those rooms and you keep showing up, I'm going to tell you guys something. Doesn't matter if you're sitting in Houston, Dallas, or Austin. You're East Coast, West Coast. Many of these organizations, many of these people are interconnected. So making sure that you follow up makes you stand out, because many times most people are so busy, especially when we're in the beginning stages, because we're wearing 50 hats. But if that is your current position, know that it won't always be, but how you start is how you finish, but it's ultimately how you're going to win. Because if you're not following up now, how will you be able to do it once you're awarded 1 contract, 2 contracts, 3? You're going to be overwhelmed. So it's very vital that you start to think about how you're going to streamline and activate, so that way when you do become a huge MBDA success story, you can come back here and tell them those simple things is what got you to true success.
We do have a couple questions in the chat now. Ms. Rains, thank you so much. I see you have a couple of questions in here. Tanya, can you see Ms. Rains or the questions?
I can.
Okay.
First, she did acknowledge she liked the idea of you sharing your growth as a business in such a tangible way. Secondly, she indicated that she will be at the Challenge Her event tomorrow. She's never been, and she wanted some tips on the event, if you have those. And I'm going to also read her second question. She would also love to hear more about what information to include in introductory emails to potential buyers.
Oh, I like that question. And kudos to you for going to the Challenge Her event. It's going to be amazing. One of the things that I would definitely say is to go in and see who's going to the event. Start to prepare today. I know that I know several people in my ecosystem who are going to be attending. So going to LinkedIn, going to Facebook, figuring out who's going to be at that event. Start to connect with them, because you know what? It makes a big difference. Because remember, I told you there's a difference between having a network and an ecosystem. I know a lot of people, but your ecosystem can speak your name when you're not in the room. They can share your business. They are your company's super fans. So start to think about who you can start to connect with, and just say, hey, I see that you registered for the event. I'm going to be there as well. Maybe we can connect here. I'd love to learn more about your business. But then going to the website and then just seeing, well, who's going to be there? What agencies do you want to connect with that's going to be there? What is your game plan? Make sure that you arrive early, because remember, arriving early means you are never late. Even if you just sit in your car, always make sure that you're there on time, because guess what? A lot of the magic happens in those early moments before the event starts. And if you have some time, stay up maybe 10 or 15 minutes over, because you never know who you'll meet. So making sure that you kind of plan out what you're going to do and take as many business cards and capability statements as you can, because you may think, oh, I'm not going to give that many, but guess what? Having that information readily available is something that's going to be able to help you. Lastly, with that, making sure that you understand who is there and introduce yourself to them. Making sure that even the people who are planning the event, make sure that they know who you are. Share your information with them as well, and let them know any future events that you definitely want to be there. In the second question, you asked what some of the introductory emails can be as simple as this. And I will try, if Dr. Turner is okay, I'll try to share some. I'll send it to Austin and I can kind of give you guys some things too. But just figuring out who the email is. And that one question I always get, so I'm going to answer it. Well, what if I don't know their email? I told you, LinkedIn, leverage LinkedIn. I made 25% of the company's revenue on LinkedIn last year by leveraging it, because I may not have their information, but just connecting there and getting to know them kind of gives me a segue on how to be able to connect with them, and then see what events they're going to. Make sure that you start to connect with those events and seeing how you can go, because guess what? Many times you can kind of get the contact person's information. And if they're having an event on Eventbrite, follow the actual people putting on the event. And if you have some questions, send them You can send a message to the Eventbrite via Eventbrite. There's multiple ways to be able to make sure that you land on where you would like to go. One of the things that I say in this is like, hi, and keep it short, because procurement officers and key stakeholders, they get tons of emails.
Yeah.
So be very direct. Tell them what you do, why you do it, and here's attaches your capability statement. And if they want to be able to learn more about you, guess what? They're going to reach out, because trust me, I've done it. And so you want to make sure that you are crystal clear on what you do. Maybe a few sentences, no more than a paragraph, because people want to be able to skim through and just kind of just see if this is for you. And lastly, what I do in my email, if you're not the person that this capability statement, thank you for reviewing it. If you're not the department or the person who I need to speak with, I hope you don't mind sharing that information or forwarding this information for them. There's never a problem, because they want to be able to help us as small businesses. So I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. And then in these last few minutes together, let me get to these. Miss Esther says, how do you choose which event to attend when you have two on the same day at the same time? I'm going to let you, because of course I have a response, but I'm going to let Dr. Humphrey answer
and
that.
I'd love to hear yours as well, Dr. Turner. So one of the things is, I always think about this. Is there an opportunity? And I've had to do it, depending on where side of town, or if they were close. If I kind of went to an event and had to leave, or I went to both, I kind of squeeze it in. One of the things is, this is why it's important. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Even before I had the team that I have now, when people are bought into you and they're a part of your ecosystem, I had to ask people who knew me, hey, I want to do business with both of these organizations that's putting on this event. If you're planning on going, do you mind collecting this information and sharing my capability statement? I've put the folder and everything here for you to be able to share, if you don't mind passing it through. But figuring out how you're going to make it, because you may not be able to go to everything. So that's why it's important to be very strategic on what makes sense to where you are and what your next milestone is. Because sometimes we can spread ourselves too thin. So figuring out which organization is going to be key for me now in the next 3 weeks, 3 months, or 6 months will help you make a better decision. And if you have someone who could sit for you, or even go and share your information, do it. Because people who really want to see you win will make sure that they help to show up for you, or to be able to pass that information along.
And I will certainly add to that, research both events.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are two events on the same day at the exact same time, and you say, hey, I want to go to both of these. Well, it's only one you. So if you want to go to both, research both events. After you've done the research, I would certainly suggest that you say, okay, this one has the speakers that I'm trying to get next to, or this one has the white folks who are going to be in attendance. Make the best decision for your business, because obviously we can't be everywhere all the time, but we can make the best informed decisions for our personal businesses. And so once you do the research on the two events, weigh the options. What makes more sense for me and my business to be at? And then, maybe try to catch the other one if they offer it virtually, or if it's going to be recorded, just do some inquiring to see, what makes sense for you, is what I would say. And then we do have a couple other questions. Tanya, can you see those?
Here's one. Hi, Sharita. I wanted to ask about presenting your service-based businesses to procurement teams. It seems like more supplier procurement agencies are looking for more product-based businesses. How did you make your business stand apart?
I get that I get that question all the time, because we are a service-based business. One of the things that I will have to be able to say is, do not get discouraged thinking that your service-based business is not being desired by procurement opportunities. That is so far from the truth. We started as a service-based business. We literally just recently added a tech component by having a learning management system because we just saw the growth plan and we knew I knew as the CEO what I wanted to do. But base your business, and Dr. Turner just mentioned this, many times we're not aligning our service-based businesses or putting them or going to the right procurement opportunities. Because if you are, in making sure that you use things like Bonfire, that is a plethora of being able to see what the government is procuring. If you're not on Bonfire, you are missing a lot of opportunities. OpenGov is another one for those who are in OpenGov, and I can share the links with Austin and Joni. Is another one for those service-based businesses who feel like that they're not being able to look for opportunities or they're not seeing opportunities that are more service-based. So making sure that you're even looking at opportunities from a standpoint, because you can't, like Dr. Turner said, you can't be everywhere. So making sure that you sign up for organizations and making sure you're very specific on what city, like for me, we just signed up to do business with the city of Rio Rancho, New Mexico. But we're very there because they're looking for service-based business. One of the things is making sure that you understand that you have to do a little bit of the front work and then let the Bonfire and OpenGov and BidNet do the rest of it for you. So then you'll be able to have a very streamlined resource that can send you direct things that are tailored to your NICES codes and your NIGP codes. That's going to be able to help you to get those service-based opportunities that you may be overlooking.
Absolutely. And then Ms. Rains, let me thank you so much. You are really killing these questions. I'm loving it. And I know our time is winding down. So Ms. Rains, I will certainly please email Ms. Joni Hall at joni.hall@hccs.edu. Her information is on the screen, as well as Mr. Austin Tenette at austin.tenette@hccs.edu. I would love for them to have office hours with you, Ms. Rains. Thank you again for being so efficient and proficient in asking your questions. I know we are winding down, so I'm going to ask your last question, but I certainly want you to connect with Joni and Austin because I think they'll be a great resource for you. So having said that, the last question, Ms. Rains says she's never worked with a government agency before, only private and nonprofits previously. She's a bit nervous about working with government. Dr. Humphrey, how would you, what tips do you have for her to overcome that intimidation?
First of all is going back and showing and listening to all the replays, all the information that the MBDA is getting out there, and making sure you just did the first step and just admitting that I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I don't feel confident about it. And making sure that you can continue to connect with Joni and Austin, showing up and being vulnerable. I think a lot of times, and Dr. Turner, I hope you don't mind me, and I'll close out, is
No,
that
go right ahead.
vulnerability and authenticity is the gateway for you to be able to understand how important it is to be able to, and because if everybody felt confident, then we'd have more people doing this. So you are not alone. I am an introvert by nature. That is hard for people to believe. So Ms. Rains, just know that it takes a little bit, but just do it a little bit at a time. Keep showing up, because keep putting yourself out there and letting people know that I don't know what I don't know, but here's where I need help. Because just saying that you're not feeling confident about it, it's not going to be enough. Say why you're not feeling confident about it and what you need. And then you'll be surprised on the return on your investment of being vulnerable will come back to you and really help you to be able to open up some doors. So I hope that is helpful. Keep showing up. Do it. Do one thing at a time, one step at a time. You don't have to do everything. It's only one you. Do one thing and keep doing it. Rinse and repeat, and you will get to where you need to be.
Great information and advice. Listen, I used to think I was an introvert, but I have just come at my age and stage in life to realize that I am very much so an extrovert. And I love my quiet at home time with my family and all that good stuff. But listen, put me in front of a crowd and I got something to say every time. So I guess that makes me not an introvert, but that's okay. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Humphrey. Austin, thanks for connecting Dr. Humphrey and I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Dr. Humphrey, I'm definitely gonna look you up on LinkedIn so we can connect. Thank you all so much for attending. We truly value your time. We want to be mindful of your time. So it is now 11 o'clock. So our time here is over. But again, please, please, please schedule office hours with Mr. Tenette and Ms. Hall. They are waiting. Their information is on the screen, and we would love to continue the conversations with you all. Again, schedule your office hours, and you can do that via their email. And I know somebody commented very early on that they've sent Mr. Tenette a couple of emails and he has not responded. Mr. Tenette, please, please, please check your HCC email.
Shame on me.
Yes, it is. So check your email because people are sending you emails and they thought they had the wrong email address, but they didn't. It was just you not answering. So we want to make sure you are answering those HCC emails because that's the information we have. So again, thank you all so much. We hope you have a fantastic week and we look forward to our next MBDA Small Business Academy in 2 weeks. Thank you all. Have a great week.